Hello, today's special guest again is attorney Katie Bogenschutz from Tallahassee. Hi, Katie. Welcome back. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Everything's great. I was in the jail this morning and I will be returning there this afternoon as a visitor.
Which jail?
Leon County Jail. And it actually was really interesting. One of the guards mentioned, Charlie was really cool when he was in there.
Really?
Just he was a cool guy. Basically he was a non-problem kind of an inmate. And I was like, oh, that's not what I read recently.
Yeah, because wasn't he cursing out one of the jail staff and calling them a bunch of racial slurs and curse words?
Yeah, I mean, but also the guy that was there's like non-contact visits, which is where you're talking through a window with your client on the phone. Yeah. And but you get like a private booth to do that, so there's some privacy in that. And then there's contact visits where they have to like pick you up at the front desk and walk you back, and that's what I was doing with my laptop to be able to watch body cam video with one of my clients. So I had some time like going through a bunch of door locks with this guy to mention it, and I was like, well, Judge Everett just got out. Judge Everett's my judge in this case, and I was like, well, maybe he did enter an order and I didn't know about it because he just got out of this case and it could be an oversight and I don't know. And he goes, yeah, Charlie was real cool when he was in here. Not so much Donna. And I was like, what? So I mean, the girls at the front desk were watching the trial together when I was one of the times I was walking in to go see this one client of mine.
Yeah, I guess it really was some sort of big deal where people who knew about the case were glued to the screens. Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's drama on TV.
Mm-hmm. And it's real life. And it affected Tallahassee.
I found it really interesting. The one that I said, well, he was in a murder trial. Maybe it's possible he signed something and maybe didn't get scanned. And he goes, yeah, Charlie was cool.
Well, maybe that was, he probably didn't know about the whole cursing incident where Charlie's big toe allegedly got hit by the door. Yeah.
Right.
Because, you can see that of Charlie, that he did have he did have some charm because that's how he attracted women and his friends. And so he knew how to talk to people and persuade them. So I'm sure when he wants something, when he wants to be nice, he can put on a good face. Yeah. Did you see any of those jail transport videos that Tanika's 2 Cents had and Grizzly True Crime?
I saw one that had to do with Wendy's, the chain.
Wendy's chain? What was that?
The chain restaurant. The Wendy's,
where he ate the Wendy's food. Okay, yeah, that was from Tanika's 2 Cents. So big thanks to her for showing that to us. Yeah, and when I saw those videos, I was like, hey, this jail actually looks pretty clean and modern. I wasn't expecting it to look like that. I thought it was going to be really grungy and dirty.
LCJ is great. And I it's not like it's being reviewed on Google or anything like that, but in comparison to some of the other jails I've been to, the only complaint I have about it is that they usually put like parameters on the times you can come in to see your clients. So, I mean, I'm always getting stuck somewhere with something, doing some sort of whatever. So if I don't get in there by a certain time, I can't get in there. And the fact that everything's body cam now, so that most of my meetings are appointments with my laptop, so everybody can watch body cam on their cases.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping we'll develop the technology to do that remotely at some point.
Yeah. So do you think Charlie had any opportunities for contact visits while he was there?
I think he probably did. I don't know. I know that because of the sheer number of calls that were up on the wire, I don't know how they handled that, but I download everything to my computer. I actually have a couple of external hard drives if I need to, so that because they won't let you access the internet in the jail for obvious reasons. And then you just download everything and you go through them one at a time. But I think there's only one room that's available for a contact visit. And I was one of the things that I was talking with the guy that was escorting me about. I feel like that needs to change, because if you think about it, like, say you have 5 cops on the scene of, a relatively serious crime, serious enough to get somebody in custody and awaiting trial. And you got 5 cops on the scene, and each of them are there for 2 hours. That's 10 hours of video that you have to make sure your client's able to watch. And if they're out, I can just send them a link and have them watch it on their own time, and then we'll just go over the important parts. But if they're in custody, that's a problem. I got to spend 10 hours in there. I mean, at least I feel like I need to spend 10 hours in there, and that you need to have watched every single minute of the body cam.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And what does the room look like?
I mean, it's just like it looks like a conference room. There's a glass window on the door, I guess, if I'm like screaming for help. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's no, and inmates walk around in there without any kind of shackles or anything like that.
Oh.
So, yeah, so they just come in and watch with you. But I do know there was some issue with an Apple Watch earlier with this case. So I like went out and bought like an extremely cheap, and I was afraid to even get a digital watch, because I was like, I don't want anybody to think this is like, anything crazy here. So I got like this really cheap one with the hand, that was
yeah, like a Timex watch from the drugstore or something.
Yeah, because like everybody's watches are their phones, or at least for me, I didn't really wear a watch for a long time, and now that they're taking the phone away from me and I don't have my computer, I need something to be able to tell me what time it is, so I don't accidentally leave my kid in daycare or something like that too late.
Yeah. But does the conference room have a window where you can see outside?
Yeah. And it's actually in like the, like an administrative area of the, there's like a copy machine outside. And there's, the administrators of the jail have offices nearby. So like I'm within shouting distance. In fact, it shares a wall with a bunch of offices. So like, and there's a window so they can kind of like check in on you, but they really don't unless you need something, because it's supposed to be private meetings with your attorney.
Yeah, but you want to be safe too, especially if your client isn't handcuffed. So, but getting back to Charlie, though.
I've never felt unsafe with any of my clients, I got to tell you.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's a good thing. Yeah, but getting back to Charlie, so just by the fact that he was in Leon County Jail, that meant that Harvey could have gone over to visit him, right?
Probably. I don't, because he's so high profile and because he was moved out of state, I don't know if there would have been extra restrictions on seeing him, but I mean, he certainly would have had access to the same Securus visitation apparatus, video calls, audio calls, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And since you mentioned the whole Apple Watch thing, what's your opinion about this? I understand you work in the same county with Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford. So if you don't want to comment on it, please let me know. But do you think that really happened, that Jackie let Donna use her Apple Watch to call Harvey?
I would really like to believe that it did not. I don't know Jackie personally. I'm certain at some point I'll meet her. But I just can't imagine that any attorney would put anything on. And I say that as someone who, back when I was in Fort Lauderdale, definitely prosecuted a lawyer for smuggling contraband into the jail at one point in time. Okay. So like I would love to be able to think that an attorney wouldn't do that, but I mean, there's always an exception. And, my tagline is, well, it's Florida. Like, what do you expect from us? Yeah, I would love to believe it didn't happen, especially for somebody who was a prosecutor for as long as she was. I'm always like I said, I was like looking on Amazon for like what looks like the least amount of technology on a single watch I can find, just so I can wear it in and I leave on time to pick up my kid. Right. And it's just a conference room with there's no clocks or anything like that on the walls because everybody's got their phones now. So, I mean, I went and picked something. I was like, oh no, I was ready for you. In fact, I left it in my car so that I can, attach it to my gear shift so that I don't forget it when I go in the jail.
Well, I think it was Tim Jansen or someone who said it is a felony that is punishable by up to a year in prison for an attorney to let a client use their phone or help them contact somebody outside the jail. Does that sound right? Maybe my memory is bad.
Not really. It doesn't really sound right, but introduction of contraband into a detention facility is a third-degree felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. And that's what I had charged that other lawyer with when she was bringing things into the jail for her, I guess, boyfriend. But I got to tell you, I was delighted when I got that case in. Just, you get so many just random drug cases and drug buys. And I was like, a what? Yeah, awesome.
Oh, so what was she bringing him? Drugs or something?
Huh? Yeah, drugs. Yeah. And we were like, so where do you think she put it? And all these cops and I are in the room going, who's going to say it first?
Oh, that's gross. That's gross. It's like,
I know.
Here's your little baggie of drugs. That's a little stinky.
Well, yeah, I know. We're all looking at each other we don't know each other that well. So, and I was looking around the room going, I'll do it. I'll say it. Where do you think she put it?
Yeah. So what happened? Did she lose her law license or go to prison?
I can't pull her name off the top of my head right now, but I think they sent her to some major drug. She apparently ended up having a drug problem as well, which doesn't shock me if that's what you're doing with your bar card. But I think she went to major drug rehab. I don't remember if she was suspended from the bar or what, but and I don't know if it's this way in North Carolina, but the bar will do a lot for lawyers who they think have a substance abuse problem.
Yes.
So long as it's not a crime of moral turpitude or something like that, that's usually what'll get you dinged immediately. But and you can also self-report to the bar. There's a Florida, name escaping me, Florida Lawyers Assistance, I think is the name of it. And most bars will have something like that you can almost self-report and say, hey, I think I have a drinking problem. Hey, I got a problem with pills. And they will work with you. And, it's stressful being a lawyer. I mean,
we have,
you deal with other people's crap and you need to drink, we understand.
Yeah, to cope with the stress of all your clients and cases and crappy opposing counsel. And so, yeah, we definitely have something like that too. The Lawyers Assistance Program, and they offer a few free therapy sessions and can give people mentors or somebody to help them. So, but let's see. So someone's asking, didn't Jackie Fulford get fired from his contact? I don't think she actually got fired, but she stepped down, right? Wasn't it voluntary? I think it was voluntary, but she said that
she was involuntarily retired.
Okay.
Or a disability of some kind, which of course would implicate HIPAA, and none of us would ever find out about that. My understanding was there was something pending at the time against her, some kind of ethics charges. But I mean, I wasn't here. I'm not a witness to it. I cannot sit in judgment of her. And I've only read other people's versions of what happened.
Yeah.
I've often thought that a YouTube show called Flyer or or about judges facing misconduct might do quite well because we got some stories down here.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of sordid stories, but I do recall more recently, Stephen Webster said Jackie Fulford had lied to him and other people in their state attorney's office back then that she had cancer, and it was a total lie. There's also some rumor, people have said that she had problems with pain pills, taking pills. So, but surprisingly, she still has her bar license, and she got hired to take charge of this high profile case. So hopefully she made a pretty penny off of this case. Yeah. And how did the Apple Watch call come up? I'm pretty sure it was a filing from Donna's attorneys where they were trying to refute these allegations of wrongdoing. And that's when they mentioned it.
And so Apple Watches, there's two kinds. At some point, I'll get a new one because I have like a very old one that I used to swim with. But there's some that have like a cellular capabilities. They basically have the same capability as a cell phone. So you can access a cell tower. So you're wearing the watch into the jail, and it's basically like you have a cell phone on your wrist. And then there's a less, I guess, special one that only does like a Bluetooth connection to your personal iPhone or iPad or computer. So I'm assuming it's the first kind that has its own cell capabilities because it's against the law to bring a phone into the jail.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you want to move on to talk about her motion for a new trial and to interview the jurors? What do you think about her reasons for a new trial? I can show it up on the screen if you need to take a look at it. Let's see.
Yeah, I saw I did not watch the minutia in the trial, like the arguments and the stuff beforehand. I was like skipping forward to the testimony. I was told that there was by a friend of mine who did watch some of the minutia that there was at least some, how do I want to put it? Evidence in the record for some of this stuff that they were accusing Judge Everett of. I just didn't see it because I was like, oh, that's not a witness, and clicking forward. So I don't know if that's a thing. I'm just relying on what somebody else told me, but I really don't think that it's enough there to overturn a trial. The jurors talking, like as soon as they talked, I was like, yep, it's going to be an emotion. But I don't think anything really went to the point where you could overturn a verdict for juror misconduct. The one that they did jump on, which was not the foreman, it was one of the other ones who said he was personally watching the defendant's reaction.
Yeah.
And then immediately said, I didn't take that into consideration. So there is some case law in Florida about not being able, that if a defendant does not take the stand, which of course she didn't in this case, that you cannot take into consideration their demeanor on the stand, or demeanor at counsel table, and you can't comment on it as a prosecutor. Like you can't point at her and say that she's a cold-hearted bee or whatever in your closing because she didn't cry enough or whatever. But I don't think anybody commented on it in closing, at least not that I recall. And the juror said he didn't take that into consideration. So,
yeah. Also, Mentor Lawyer Deep Dive True Crime did a very good, I think it was a live stream just a couple of days ago where he discussed this motion, and he didn't think that these complaints were valid or that that the jury decision is going to be overturned based on these things. So he also talked with the jury foreperson again, and it's good info. So you guys should jump on Hoopford there and take a look at his live stream from a couple of days ago. Yeah.
I mean, I was really impressed with the jurors who spoke. They really seemed to know how serious it was. They seemed to be taking it very seriously. So maybe I haven't watched all the interviews. Maybe there's something out there that I haven't seen, but I mean, they really did seem to be model jurors.
Yeah. So it sounds like they're not supposed to communicate about the case. So it was okay for her to be on TikTok. It wasn't like she was soliciting opinions or going back and forth about the details of the case.
Or submitting a poll, click yes if I should vote guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. So it didn't go that far. So, and let's see here. Let's just slowly look through this, because just like you, I've had tons of work this week too. So sometimes you forget the details of this filing. It's like, okay, I'm not getting paid to focus on this case, but I'm still addicted to it. So, okay. So this is where they mentioned juror number 5, the man named Mitchell, who was on Surviving the Survivor.
Yeah, he seemed very, that was the one who said her reactions. But I mean, I think any human would look at her and say,
yeah,
what's your response? Especially with kids testifying. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to just be interested, like, what's she doing over there? Or what kind of faces is she making? So this is all just like boilerplate case law about juror misconduct and wanting an inquiry. But do you think the judge would still at least let them interview these 2 people?
I don't know if they've really gone far enough to have a basis to interview them in the statements that they've made. Like I said, I don't know if I've seen everything that's out there, so maybe I'll change my mind. But I just doubt it. And what I'll note is that I think 3 of them have spoken out since, and that one of them nobody had any problems with.
Yeah, that was the young guy, Evan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I was very impressed, and I was so interested in hearing what these jurors had to say, because most of the time they don't talk. So.
Well, and I'll reiterate what I've said in the past. Tallahassee is the best educated city in Florida, which, is occasionally like, bragging about, acing rehab, but, because Florida is Florida. But I mean, it really is, with the legislature and the colleges up here. I mean, I've always been very impressed with our jury pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they seem like very attentive people, the type of people you would want on a jury, because they were paying attention, taking notes, noticing all the details. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And I did see on the court record that Donna's attorneys also filed a motion, renewed motion for judgment of acquittal on the charges. So my question to you is this going to be heard before October 14th? Or do you think they would just roll it into the same sentencing case management hearing?
So I don't even know if the judge needs to hear it. He could just deny it. But I also noted that there was like a mention of like a thumb drive that was going to be dropped off. So I do think that whatever evidence there is, the judge does need to review, like, don't rule on it before you get the thumb drive and review it. So I don't know if that's happened yet.
Oh, okay.
But I've filed motions for new trial that have been, just like,
shot down.
By the end of the day, denied.
Yeah. Just like when the judge so quickly denied their motions for acquittal during the trial. Yeah.
But that's a standard motion, and it's pretty standard to do a motion for a new trial and to make sure that everything's in there to try to preserve all your appellate rights too. So, I mean, nobody should be shocked that they filed this. This is pretty standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The jurors aren't talking on TikTok though. So, or if they are, you don't hear about it.
Yeah. Well, it still kind of galls me, though, to read this, saying that the jury's verdict is contrary to the weight of the evidence. So let's just throw it all out. I'm like, well, they saw the evidence and they evaluated it. So
yeah, and this is another, like, circumstantial cases can be very compelling cases, as this one was.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because it looks like here they're picking on Patricia Bird and how she got the race of the investigator wrong for saying she was white.
And what was she?
She was black.
Oh, she was, okay. I saw the last name Khan, Khan, and I assume maybe some kind of Middle Eastern.
Yeah, maybe.
But I do remember them having a black female testify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was Ms. Khan.
Maybe she married into the name.
Yeah. Or she's Muslim or something. I have no clue. Or sometimes they misspell people's names too. So
yeah, but I could see somebody who, like, you know, somebody who's of Middle Eastern descent or Hispanic descent, and somebody calling them white and being like, okay, you know, it's your opinion. Like, what does it look like to you? You didn't ask her, did you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we saw her in court, she looked African American.
Yeah, if that was the person who testified,
yes,
fairly obviously.
So they're just making the predictable argument that she shouldn't be guilty of first-degree murder.
Yeah, and they're citing to the Denise Williams case, which was tried when I was in the state attorney's office here. And basically that Mike Williams, that they never really had an overt act that Denise did, other than that she really wanted it to be done and that she definitely conspired with this guy to do it. But there was something about, like, she would, quote, make sure her husband went on the hunting trip, but it really didn't, you know, by what?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. There has to be evidence she committed some act, uttered some words to assist another in the commission of the crime. So let's see.
Well, I think that planner is not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe they turned that over. Still.
Yeah, and that's where somebody in the comments said that maybe Rashbaum had to turn it over due to a subpoena. But would that be the case, though? I mean,
I think we would have seen it if it was subpoenaed. It's possible that he was saying that, like, look, you know, she's this prolific calendar keeper. I mean, I can tell you, I wouldn't turn it over without going through it 600 different ways, backwards, forwards, inside out, holding it up to the light, you know, making sure that, you know, it's not invisible ink or those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But the 08 Honda Accord, yikes.
Mm-hmm. With the license plate
I don't know if it's an oversight or what. I mean, but I've been making my client go through it with me too, and, like, signing off on it. And that also could be something that, you know, somebody like Charlie in his saying that Rashbaum had a conflict. Let's, like, not only was he representing my mother, he was turning over evidence on her behalf. Well, I don't know when that was turned over, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Mentor Lawyer got a copy of it, so he said he's going to eventually do some videos about that. But my question is, as a matter of criminal procedure, can the state actually subpoena the attorney for someone and say, you need to turn over her calendar?
So there's attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
There's you would have to do a search warrant for it, not just a subpoena.
Mm-hmm.
A search warrant for all planners, or I think it is highly likely. And if somebody were doing a search warrant for my office as an attorney, or especially as a criminal defense attorney, you can damn well bet there would be some litigation over that. So I have to imagine that he turned it over because he thought it helped. I just won't know that for sure. And because I think that if somebody were to subpoena that kind of thing or do that kind of a search warrant, we would see something about it in the record.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, Yeah, I think it was James, mentor lawyer, who might have mentioned this, but he said perhaps Rashbaum thought this was going to help her because on that week of July, whatever, 14th through the 19th, she didn't have anything written in there saying,
pencil in the
yeah, TV is going to happen. We're going to kill off Gibbers this date or freedom for Wendy this date. So it didn't say that. So just as we're guessing, perhaps he saw the absence of anything bad without doing a thorough review, because that stuff with the license plate was towards the back of the planner.
Well, and it could also, I mean, when he was asking Wendy questions during Charlie's trial, he was also saying things like, you had a hair appointment the next week. You were talking about enrolling your son in school. So like, future plans past the murder for Wendy. And, it's possible that Donna had other things that were like maybe scheduled for the weekend when she ended up spending the weekend in Tallahassee and obviously helping Wendy move all of her stuff out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I already went through the whole thing with Misha Janice a few days ago. So if people want to read the whole text, you can see the past live stream show there. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just scroll down here. So that's good to know that maybe Judge Everett would just summarily deny this motion without even a hearing. Do you think the state would file a response to this?
I don't think they will file a response unless they're ordered to respond to it. I mean, I wouldn't dignify it with a response if I were the prosecutor. But, I would also assume that, if there's evidence that's dropped off with it, he needs to not rule on this until like he's actually gone through the evidence to make sure, like, no matter how dumb we all think it is, that he's reviewed everything. And maybe he'll feel differently. I just know what I saw, and I really don't think anything crosses the line.
Okay. Well, what's Judge Everett's schedule like? Is he in court every single day doing hearings, or does he have other big trials?
So the way this jurisdiction works is the felony courtrooms have trial weeks and like business weeks. So next week, I can tell you for sure, is a business week for Judge Everett because I've got substantive hearings in front of him. So this current week would have been a trial week. And it goes on and off as to whether the judge is picking juries that week or, dealing with substantive motions and setting trials and setting hearings and stuff like that. So, and then there's also another concept known as a fifth week that basically, because each month is not exactly 28 days. So every couple of months you have like an extra week that's a bonus week. And usually it's a free week for, getting stuff done or for trials that you need to block off the week for. I used to schedule any kind of out of town stuff I needed to do during those weeks because you had a pretty good sign that unless it was scheduled fairly far in advance, he wouldn't be called into court.
Okay. Well, was there a grand jury that met this week? As far as you know?
I don't know. I know they meet on Wednesdays. In this jurisdiction, I believe that they only call them in if they need them. In Broward, we used to have them come in every Wednesday. And part of the thing with the grand jury is you need to have a quorum, which is you need a certain number of people there. So you could, the statutory number is escaping my brain at this moment, but you want to make sure you have more than this number of people that are assigned to the grand jury for this period of time. I also would be interested in looking into when they seat their grand jury, because grand juries are usually appointed for a period of 6 months. And I usually it's like, I don't know if they seat a new one in January or if they, or how they split the year up Because the last time I used one, it was during COVID, and I think the rules were probably significantly different during that. It was like during like it was before the Delta wave of COVID. It was during the first full year of COVID. So I can't rely on the stuff that I did then. But there's also the concept of seasoning a grand jury, because these are people that you are bringing in from the community who have maybe never been on jury duty, who maybe don't understand what the concept of a grand jury is, that you're voting to charge someone, not convict someone, just to say, hey, state, you have enough evidence to go forward with this. So like, for example, the one I did in Broward was on I had a child that was had an undetermined cause of death, and I had to retain this genetics expert in the genetic disorder she had, and disprove that the genetic disorder caused her death. Therefore, it was a homicide. So we waited until that jury's like, last month, just to make sure that they got a couple of like real clean, like they knew where the bathrooms were, like, we know we're here to indict homicides, that this is what we do. And that if it's a day where I'm literally putting on a full day of evidence for this homicide, that maybe they've seen this before and they've been appropriately seasoned so that they can take in the information and process it appropriately.
Okay. Oh, I just Googled it. So I don't know if this is 100% correct, but it says the quorum for a statewide grand jury requires 15 members. 15 out of the 18 total members must be present to conduct official business. So I'm still kind of unfamiliar with this grand jury concept. Does that mean there's a group of random people who get chosen and they have to sit there for how long? A whole day or multiple days?
So usually it's scheduled. You schedule time with the grand jury. There's no judge in the room. It's just the prosecutor and the grand jury and putting on evidence. The judge will swear them in at the beginning. But that's where you get the concept that, like, any decent prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich because you're in the room with the jury yourself. And it's like you could just put the case agent or the lead detective on the stand to just relay evidence to them. On my case, that was like had some significant medical evidence. The genetics expert had never testified. So I decided to kind of do a dress rehearsal of everything. Let him testify for the first time. I had a brand new little firefighter who was adorable, who had just been out of the academy and never testified.
Adorable. Okay.
Yeah, it was so like, it was his first death call. And but he had never testified. He had never done it. So I was like, okay, you're coming in too. Anybody who had never been there to testify. And I had the whole day just for this one case. Usually they stack up several.
But if someone's chosen to be on the grand jury, how much of a time commitment is it? And do they get paid something or get free lunch at least?
I think that they get paid, like about what you would pay a regular juror. But the time commitment is usually like 1 day a month for 6 months, depending on the jurisdiction. Depending on the jurisdiction. So I know that, Broward, I think that we sometimes would call them in extra because large county, lots of homicides. They may be calling them in more now because keep in mind, I was only a prosecutor till 2021. And I believe it was in 22 or 23 that they changed capital sexual battery on a child under the age of 12 to be a possible death case, which means that, and most of the state attorneys have taken the position that you then need to indict those. So it would probably almost or double or triple the number of cases. I mean, I hate to tell you there's that many out there. The number of cases that you actually need to put past a grand jury.
Okay. That still sounds like a big time commitment though. So do people try to get out of that just like they do with jury duty?
Yeah, they do. But usually if you're like, there's statutory reasons to get out of it. and very similar to jury duty. If somebody's trying to get out of it, it's easy to tell. But really, to be on a grand jury, it's more about like, are you qualified? Are you over 18? Are you an American citizen? Do you live in this county? Those are pretty, square parameters. And then, do you have any reason that you should be excused? Like, I gleefully, in 23, I gleefully used the fact that I was pregnant to get out of jury duty federally, and thoroughly enjoyed that, because I was used to like all these women that like I would like look at them and I'm like, I don't know, is she pregnant or not? And they'd say they were, and I was like,
like prove it. Like, where's the test?
And I was just like, no, there's no way we can do that. So you have to just kind of like take them on their word. So, and like I was showing by that point. So like it was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But so that's a reason. If you have if you've got a baby under the age of like, I think it's 6 months. If you're the primary caregiver for a vulnerable adult or a child under the age of 6, like if you're a stay-at-home mom, they're not going to make you pay for a nanny the entire time that you're on the jury. So, and obviously people that have things like, chemo for cancer. I think that they really expanded the medical reasons to not be on a grand jury. I do have a friend that I went to law school with who, I think she was the year behind me in law school, and she was the foreman of the grand jury at one point in time in Broward. So that did not disqualify her. She did not do criminal law, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, thank you, Beehive, for your generous donation. Really appreciate that, as well as amazingly true. Thank you. So we do have some questions. So do you have time for a few before we get back to work?
Sure.
Okay. This is a question from way back at the beginning. Do they video during attorney-client visits at the jail?
No. And for obvious reasons, that it is privileged. So those of you who watch like the phone calls from prison channel, you recall the Securus recording at the beginning. This call is being recorded at the voice. The calls that I get on my registered number is, this call is not being recorded. So the calls, videos, all those, none of those things are going to be recorded for attorneys in the jail.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Okay. After sentencing, how long would it take Donna to be transferred to the Florida Department of Corrections?
So the first thing that'll happen, she'll go back to the jail. There's usually like maybe once a week transport from the jail to the Northwest Florida Reception Center, which is in Chipley, which is west of here. It's, one of the more rural counties, land's cheap. That's where we're going to put it. And she will be classified and assigned somewhere. She's probably going to go to Lowell. It's Lowell, I believe. That's where they generally put the life sentences for females. That's also where death row is for females.
Yeah, but that's the same place where Katie Magpanua is. So is it big enough where they could be in totally separate sections and never run into each other?
I actually don't know, because they would both be sentenced to life, so they wouldn't be on the death row area, but I'm assuming there's a way they could segregate the two of them. But that's also some work that the Department of Corrections does when they do the intake at the Northwest Florida Reception Center. They do a little bit of research on each inmate, and there's also a lot of other, testing and stuff like that. Like, does this inmate wear glasses? Does this inmate, have a kidney issue or stuff like that to try to classify you and appropriately put you in a place. A lot of times when you've got people who are sex offenders or registered sex offenders, there's like there's a facility where they put all of those guys together, because putting them in general population is not smart.
Yeah. Okay. Do these motions have to be ruled on before sentencing? So I think so, right? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think they will be.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, it's pretty standard to file these things.
Yeah. And pretty standard for the judge to shoot it down. But don't you think it should be heard by a different judge, though? Because they're complaining about Judge Everett and saying that he was biased towards the prosecution and seemed more harsh on the defense.
Well, that's what's interesting to me is previously in, what was it, like February or something like that, they moved to recuse Judge Everett.
Yes.
I'm losing track of time this year, but like it was sometime earlier this year when they were trying to get her a bond too. They moved to recuse him, and the first DCA said, pound sand essentially. But I'm surprised that they didn't incorporate that prior issue in with the allegations that, Judge Everett isn't being fair. So what you could do if you're the defense attorney and you're really trying to make your case, you would take all the information over there, like Judge Everett signed a search warrant for X, Y, and Z and knew all of this stuff and knew I was under investigation and knew, and has a bad taste in his mouth about me now because he's read all of these allegations, which weren't even true. And then here's the way I was treated at trial. That's something that I think I probably would have done, given those facts, but I'll be a little, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw another motion to recuse Judge Everett.
Okay. And is Judge Everett going to have to watch the juror interviews in order to rule on it?
So whatever he's provided by the defense, I assume he's going to watch. I just remember seeing that there was a thumb drive that was going to be
provided to him. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what's going to be provided. I'm assuming it'll also be provided to the state as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've always wondered how defense attorneys who have to know their client is lying gets up and says the things they say in open court.
So there's a lot of ethical rules that are involved in this, particularly when it comes to criminal defense. So as an attorney, I cannot suborn perjury in a courtroom. Like I can't put on a witness I know is lying. However, if I know my client's lying and I know he's a lying liar who lies and I know this whole story is bunk, and he says, I want to take the stand, that's my constitutional right as a defendant, I can't say, no, you can't testify, right? Because you have that right. So a lot of times this is why you don't want to have attorneys on the jury because, and I used to joke about this with some of the old timers, like you walk up and say, Judge, may I have my client permitted to testify in the narrative form? Which means that I'm not asking them a lot of questions. I'm saying, what do you want to tell the court, and sitting down. So I'm not the one bringing out that evidence. So yeah, but that's something you would do sidebar. I mean, look, you'd have to be really damn sure that they're lying about it in order to do something like that. But I've certainly seen it happen. In fact, I've seen defense attorneys that I've gone against when I was a prosecutor use that, and it made me respect them more.
Okay, thanks. That's very informative. And
it just hasn't come up for me, personally.
Okay. Do they screen the grand jury for people who don't know about the case?
No, that's not a requirement for the grand jury. It would be probably a requirement, like if my husband was sitting on the grand jury and I was presenting a case, I think they'd probably just tell him to go home. But he would be able to sit on a case for a colleague of mine.
Mm-hmm. And can the defendant testify and try to convince them that I didn't do this?
Sometimes the state will send a defendant an invitation letter. And usually it's an invitation to your own funeral. So you invite them to come testify at the grand jury. A lot of times, like, for example, the one that I really spent the most time on and really poured myself into was that child homicide. We didn't want her to know that, like, 11 months later, I'm still thinking about you. And 11 years later, George is still thinking about the Adelsons. So like you wouldn't be setting them like, I just want you to know you might be getting indicted for murder one, next week or two, so if you want to like plan any trips, go for it. But in other cases, like federal cases, like most cases federally are indicted unless you go into it with an agreement to plead. So, like a drug case or conspiracy case, public corruption case, maybe you'll get an invitation letter to the grand jury. And note, not a subpoena, because a subpoena, as we've all learned in Adelson class, is compelled testimony. So you are invited, not subpoenaed.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm learning so much from you. Yeah, that's great. Was your father Dave in Broward?
Well, to my knowledge, he still is my father. So
okay, yeah. So your dad's pretty well known.
It's a weird last name,
an attorney. Yes.
Yeah, it's very difficult to say Bogenschutz, no relation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me scroll down, see if there's any quick question, and then we kind of get back to work, of course. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay. How's your law practice going?
It's been going great. Like I should have done this years ago. I'm really happy doing this.
Yeah. It's so much better to be your own boss instead of at the whim of other people. Well, I mean, you're still at the whim of your clients, but you can manage it. Yeah.
I was always very afraid of the money issue, that like I didn't want to deal with the money. And I was like, oh, there's accountants for that. I can pay somebody to do that for me.
Yeah.
And that basically don't scrimp on accountants or for me, my rule was don't scrimp on accountants or tech. Those were my two cardinal rules. Yeah,
that's great. Okay, so last question then. What does an attorney do when they know their client's a lying liar and wants to take the stand? The narrative approach is a great idea, but do most judges approve it?
Yeah, I mean, because, well, and also keep in mind that if you're a defense attorney and you do something like this, like, Judge, you need to let my client testify in the narrative. Or, if I have enough plausible deniability where like, I think this guy is lying, but I'm not 100% sure, like I'm pretty sure you really need to, like, the guy needs to have told you something in your office that is wildly different from the stuff he's going to say on the stand for you to take that path. So, I mean, I've only seen it done, I think once. In the 12 years I was a prosecutor, I only saw it done once by a defense attorney. And I probably left the state attorney's office, even with 1 year of COVID, with over 100 jury trials. So that's very rare. Yeah, I mean, if the judge starts getting in the way of your client testifying in a case, then you're creating all kinds of appellate issues. And if the judge is saying, no, the judge is ordering you to ask this guy questions when in fact, he's lying, then, I must be clear with the bar if the judge ordered me to do it. I'd have to do a little bit of research on that, actually. And thank God it hasn't come up for me. So I haven't had to suddenly become an expert on that area of law. Yeah, of course, I think that Charlie's extortion story would have been better received in Miami. 100%. Like that's a Miami defense. That would have worked in Miami. That would have worked in Fort Lauderdale. That would have worked. I'm from Broward, which is Fort Lauderdale area. But yeah, I think it would have worked in Fort Lauderdale. I think it would have worked in Miami. It may have worked in Palm Beach.
Interesting. And that's because why? Because people know about these gangs and how scary they are.
No, I think that people are a little bit more skeptical of the government down there. And up here, you've got a bunch of rule followers that are government workers. It's a lot. This is a city full of rule followers. It delight, like, as somebody who, like, I have a very German part of my brain, like rule following. Oh my goodness. I was delighted when I figured out that Tallahassee juries were like that. But I mean, like, those are the kinds of people that self-select to live in Tallahassee because they're government workers. They work for the legislature. If this, then this kind of people.
Yeah.
And then South Florida does not have that kind of like bureaucracy or, hierarchies. There's a lot more like just regular industry down there. And then there's a lot of like out of country transplants that for good reason don't trust the government. Like, I mean, if I was Haitian, if I grew up in Haiti and I moved to the US, I wouldn't trust the government. If I were, or Cuban, Cuban people are notorious for not trusting the government because of what they've been subjected to in their lives. So and it's, the proximity to Caribbean nations that maybe, people have had not good experiences with that, is another, factor that leads to those kinds of verdicts down there.
Okay. Well, also, somebody asked if any of the jurors from Charlie's trial spoke out, but I haven't heard of any of them speaking to the media. And this is quick, and then I swear we are taking off now because we got work to do. But what high school did you attend?
I went to a school called Pinecrest in Broward, which was private, but mostly because they made sure the right kids got into the right cars at the time.
Yeah,
so my mother was worried about me being kidnapped.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm glad. I was like, doing stuff with cocaine cowboys in the 80s. So just like kind of keep that in mind that she was just like, she's a little nutty, but like she had a good reason to worry about that.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you'll come back in the future. We could discuss other things besides just the Dan Markel and Donna Adelson case and stuff. Maybe we'll be discussing the Wendy Adelson case in a couple of months, right? I mean, do you feel optimistic about that, or do you just have any
I think that before the end of the year, something's going to happen with her. If it doesn't happen by the end of the year, then we should not expect it to happen at all. Let's put it that way. If they were going to move, they'll move. But I mean, I'm sure they're exhausted. I'm sure they want to get their ducks in a row. I'm sure they want to pre-prep the Castigar issues that they know they're going to go to massive hearings on. And I'm sure they've got eyes on her too.
Yeah. Well, did you see there was a local news channel that spoke briefly to Jack Campbell maybe last week, and he said something like how Georgia and Sarah Catherine deserve a break, or they're tired, they need to rest or something. So some people kind of went off the rails and said, see, that means they're not going to arrest Wendy. But I don't think that meant that whatsoever. I mean, it makes sense. Maybe they do need like a week break.
Yeah. Or like, this is not their only assignment. They've both got other homicides assigned to them. And I sometimes think about like, if I were the family member of another homicide victim who knew Georgia had my family member's case, or knew Sarah had my family member's case, and saw this, news about the Adelsons. The rule is generally, when you're a prosecutor, no victim is more important than another victim. They all fall into the same category. So I think that they probably need to have the opportunity just to like clean up their offices too. I mean, they were doing nothing but Adelsons for like what, a month?
Yeah. So anyway, like you said, if nothing happens by the end of the year, then I would be pessimistic. But based on what I've heard and seen, just a rumor mill and stuff, it does sound like a lot of people think Wendy is going to be arrested. So we'll see.
I heard Dave Ehrenberg say that he thought it was like a 95% chance, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that makes me feel good going into the weekend here. Yeah. Oh, did you see that article where someone supposedly interviewed Charlie after Donna got convicted? And people were saying, I don't know if that's a true article, because he was saying something about how he thinks Wendy should be getting her affairs in order.
I don't know. I heard about it and I didn't read the actual article. So, but I mean, I would imagine if I was one of his appellate attorneys, I wouldn't be terribly pleased with him for giving an interview without telling me.
Yeah, it sounded, the tone of the article seemed a little bit dubious, just because I do wonder, like, why would Charlie speak so much to some, it's not like a real.
Why would Charlie speak so much?
Well, yeah, because he talks and talks. Maybe he was lonely and he was happy that some female reporter was contacting him. I don't know, but I feel like if I had the time, I would try to investigate, because the person who wrote the article, it said something like how she's like a former criminal defense attorney or former attorney. So anyway, I haven't had time to look into that whatsoever, but it's just interesting that there was some lengthy article with quotes from him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It didn't sound like him. Yeah, and everybody knows what he sounds like by now.
Yeah. I mean, why would he say anything about Wendy and how, I hope she's getting her affairs in order and, making plans and stuff? It sounds kind of strange for her brother to be saying. So, yeah.
And I picture Charlie saying affairs in order. It doesn't seem like it's in his vocabulary.
Yeah, that's true. He'd probably say something in more vernacular with some curse words or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Katie, and hope you have a great weekend. We have to say goodbye, get back to work and stuff. So hope you have a nice day and good luck at your 3 o'clock hearing.
Oh, it's not a hearing. It's an appointment in the jail.
Appointment in jail. Okay. Piece of cake. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Justice for Tammy.